It was a Tuesday, or I think it was. Time had stopped making sense weeks ago. I was in a diner, ironically, just trying to grab a lukewarm coffee before heading out to scavenge. I'd picked a place a few towns over, figured less chance of running into anyone I knew, or worse, anyone who knew me from before. Then it started. Screams, not the panicked kind, but a raw, guttural terror that ripped through the air. I peeked out the window. People were running. Not like, oh no, I'm late for work, running. This was primal, a stampede of pure fear. Then I saw him. Or what was left of him. My neighbor, old Mr. Henderson, the one who always waved from his porch. He wasn't waving anymore. He was gnawing on someone. His eyes were milky, vacant, but his jaw was working with a savage purpose that made my stomach clench. And the person he was eating? Their face was a mask of horror, their limbs twisting in a way that wasn't natural, like they were trying to fight something inside themselves. My coffee cup hit the floor, splashing brown liquid across the greasy linoleum. I just stood there, frozen. Another person stumbled out of a car, their gait jerky, uneven, like a marionette with a broken string. Then another. And another. It was like a plague of broken dolls, but instead of stuffing, they were filled with an insatiable hunger. The diner door burst open and one of them lurched in. It was a woman, her clothes torn, blood splattered across her face, but not her own. She lunged for the cook, who was frozen behind the counter. The sound was horrific. A wet, tearing sound, followed by gurgles and choked cries. I didn't need to see anymore. My brain, bless its survival instinct, finally kicked in. I bolted. I ran out the back door, through the grimy alley, my lungs burning, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every noise sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I scrambled over trash cans, my hands scraping against brick, the image of Mr. Henderson's vacant stare burned into my mind. I was alone. Utterly, terrifyingly alone. The world I knew, the one with bad coffee and waving neighbors, was gone. Replaced by this nightmare. How long can a person survive like this, always looking over your shoulder, always wondering if the next person you see will be the one trying to eat you? What would you do if you were in that diner, and the chaos spilled in? Just tell me, what would you do? Look, I know this is, well, it's probably the last time anyone will ever hear this. If you're somehow out there, listening, please, just know I tried. I'm trying. And if you liked this, if it's giving you some kind of insight, or even just a good scare, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, and throw a like on this if you can. Maybe it'll help someone else. Maybe it's just a message in a bottle. I don't know. But I have to keep moving. There's always the next town, the next road, the next chance. Or the next mistake. The air in the abandoned gas station was thick with the smell of stale oil and dust. Rain lashed against the grimy windows, a relentless drumbeat that mirrored the frantic pulse in Alara's ears. She'd been on the run for days, a gnawing hunger her constant companion, the phantom weight of the stolen supplies a fresh source of anxiety. Every creak of the metal roof, every gust of wind that rattled the loose siding, sent a jolt of adrenaline through her. She scanned the desolate highway through a cracked pane, her eyes searching for headlights, for any sign of movement that wasn't just the wind playing tricks. Nothing. Just the endless, weeping darkness. She rummaged through the worn backpack, her fingers brushing against the smooth, cool surface of the device she'd managed to snatch. It was heavy, deceptively so for its size. The etched symbols on its casing were alien, intricate patterns that seemed to hum with a low, almost imperceptible energy. She'd seen them before, in the whispered stories of the old ones, tales dismissed by most as folklore. But Alara had always paid attention to the whispers. She believed. A distant rumble, deeper than the thunder, made her freeze. It wasn't the sound of a passing truck. It was a growl, a predatory sound that seemed to vibrate in her bones. She pulled her jacket tighter, her gaze fixed on the highway's black ribbon. Then, a single, piercing beam of light cut through the downpour, growing rapidly larger. It wasn't a car. It was too low, too wide. And it was moving too fast, defying the slick, rain-soaked asphalt. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through her exhaustion. She scrambled back, her heart hammering against her ribs. The growl intensified, joined by a high-pitched whine that scraped at her nerves. The light, a blinding, unnatural green, illuminated the gas station, casting grotesque shadows that danced and writhed. Ilara ducked behind a rusted pump, her breath catching in her throat. Whatever was out there, it wasn't human, and it was hunting. She clutched the device, a desperate, futile gesture. There was nowhere to run. The sound was upon her. The metal door of the gas station imploded inward, sending a shower of glass and debris across the cracked concrete floor. A hulking silhouette, impossibly tall and sinuous, filled the doorway. Its eyes, twin emeralds glowing with an inner fire, swept across the interior, finally locking onto Ilara's hiding place. There was no escape, no more roads to follow. The whispers had led her here, to this moment, to this confrontation. She held her breath, the device a cold, hard weight in her trembling hand, and waited for what came next. The storm raged on outside, oblivious to the silent, terrifying drama unfolding within the decaying husk of a forgotten service station. It all started with the sirens, a distant wail that slowly grew, morphing into a deafening cacophony. I was on my rooftop, in what used to be a quiet suburb, just trying to catch a bit of sun before the heat of the day really kicked in. Then I saw it. Not just one or two people acting strange, but everyone. A woman, just a few blocks away, suddenly stopped mid-stride, her body convulsing. It was like a puppet with its strings cut. Then, she just lunged at a mailman. My stomach twisted. I watched, frozen, as she, or whatever it was now, tore into him. The screams, they were raw, animalistic. And then, the mailman, or what was left of him, started to twitch. His eyes, glazed over, rolled back in his head. Within seconds, he was up, stumbling, a guttural groan ripping from his throat. And he was moving towards the nearest sound, a dog barking in fear. Panic. It was pure, unadulterated panic. I scrambled back inside, slamming the door, locking it, then fumbling with the deadbolt. The sounds from outside escalated. Screams turned to moans, moans turned to that awful gnawing, tearing noise. I could hear glass breaking. My neighbors, Mrs. Gable with her prize-winning roses, Mr. Henderson who always borrowed my lawnmower, they were gone. Replaced by these shambling, ravenous things. For days, I stayed holed up. The initial shock was like a physical blow. Every creak of the house, every distant thud, sent ice through my veins. Food was the first problem. My pantry, stocked for a week, felt like a joke. I rationed everything. Water became a precious commodity, the tap water suddenly feeling wrong. I tried the radio, static, nothing. The internet was dead. The world had just stopped. Then came the hunger. Not just my own, but theirs. They'd gather outside, drawn by any sound, any flicker of movement. Their collective groans were a constant, maddening hum that seeped into my bones. I saw them through the cracks in the blinds, their skin gray and rotting, their limbs moving with a jerky, unnatural gait. Their eyes, empty voids, yet focused with a chilling intensity on anything alive. One afternoon, desperate for something, anything, I risked opening the back door. A mistake. One of them, a former teenager I'd seen skateboarding, was just a few yards away. Its jaw hung slack, saliva dripping onto the overgrown grass. It turned its head, a slow, deliberate motion, and its vacant stare met mine. It didn't recognize me, of course. It recognized only the scent of life. It started to shuffle, its movements surprisingly quick, and I slammed the door shut, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The sound of its fist hitting the wood, dull and heavy, echoed in the sudden silence. I was trapped. And the world outside was a graveyard, teeming with the hungry dead. I was in the middle of a grocery run, just grabbing some milk and bread, when it all went to hell. The screams started on the street, then the sirens, and then, well, then I saw it. A woman, a neighbor I recognized from down the block, was hunched over another person, gnawing at their neck like an animal. Her eyes were milky white, and her movements were jerky, unnatural. I froze, my cart rolling away, the milk carton toppling and spilling its white contents onto the dusty asphalt. It was unreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. People were running, panicking, and I saw more of them, the ones who were supposed to be helping, turning on each other. It wasn't just chaos, it was pure, unadulterated savagery. My mind couldn't process it. This wasn't some movie, this was real, and the stench of blood was already thick in the air. I abandoned the cart, my legs suddenly heavy, and bolted back into the store. The staff, a couple of teenagers who were probably more worried about their phones a minute ago, were just as terrified. We scrambled to lock the doors, barricade the aisles with whatever we could find. Cans of soup, bags of flour, even the flimsy checkout counters became our makeshift fortifications. Through the glass doors, I saw them. Shambling figures, their clothes torn, their skin a sickly gray. They weren't people anymore. They were empty. Driven by some primal hunger that had consumed whatever humanity they once possessed. One of them slammed its head against the glass, a sickening thud that sent a tremor through the floor. My heart was a drumbeat of pure dread, each beat a reminder of how fragile we were. Hours blurred into a terrifying waiting game. The initial panic gave way to a gnawing anxiety. We were trapped, and whatever was happening outside wasn't going to just go away. Whispers circulated through our small group, rumors of what caused it, where to go, who to trust. But trust was a luxury none of us could afford anymore. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every distant moan sent chills down my spine. We rationed the meager supplies we found in the store, the taste of stale crackers and lukewarm water now a desperate comfort. Sleep offered no escape, nightmares plagued us, filled with the same vacant stares and guttural growls that haunted our waking hours. The silence, when it came, was even worse, a heavy blanket of anticipation, always waiting for the next onslaught. The group started to fray. Paranoia set in. Accusations flew over who ate the last of the canned peaches, over who was making too much noise. Sarah, the cashier who'd been so brave at first, started to break down, her sobs echoing through the store, a beacon for any of them that might be nearby. Then there was Mark, who kept talking about a military evacuation point, a mythical sanctuary that no one else had heard of. His desperation was palpable, and I could see the hunger in his eyes wasn't just for food. He was looking at our dwindling supplies, at us, with a predatory gleam that made my skin crawl. The world outside had changed, but the monsters, I was learning, weren't just the ones with the rotting flesh. We had to move. Staying put was a slow death sentence, a gradual starvation punctuated by the inevitable breach of our defenses. The idea of venturing out, of facing that horror again, was almost unbearable. But the alternative was worse. We gathered what little we could carry, some water bottles, a few cans of food, a rusty crowbar I'd found in the back. As we prepared to unlock the doors, Mark made his move, lunging for the remaining food, his face contorted with a madness that was terrifyingly familiar. The sounds of struggle, the grunts, the sickening crunch of bone, it was a brutal, ugly end to our fragile alliance, leaving me alone once more, with the echoes of violence and the gnawing certainty that survival meant becoming something I never thought I could be. My name is Elias, and I was on a camping trip in the mountains when it all went south. 1 minute, I'm enjoying the fresh air, the next, I hear this god-awful screaming from the direction of the nearest town, Pine Creek. I figured it was just some drunk causing trouble, but the screams kept coming, and then, well, then I saw them. Figures, shuffling out of the trees, not walking, not running, but lurching. Their eyes were vacant, milky white, and their skin, it looked like it was rotting off their bones. I ducked behind a thick pine, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. And then I saw it up close. A woman, a hiker I'd seen earlier, her face was half-eaten, a gaping maw where her cheek used to be. She was gnawing on something, something that looked a lot like another person. The sounds were just sickening. Gurgling, tearing, a wet, messy business that churned my stomach. And the way they moved, those jerky, unnatural motions, it was like watching puppets with broken strings. Panic set in. This wasn't some movie, this was real. The sheer, raw horror of it paralyzed me for a second. I had to get out. I scrambled away, deeper into the woods, not caring about my gear, just needing to put as much distance between myself and that thing. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves sent a fresh wave of ice through my veins. I kept picturing those dead eyes, that mindless hunger. Days blurred into a desperate, primal existence. I ate berries, whatever roots I could identify, drank from streams. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford, not really. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every distant sound was a potential harbinger of doom. I saw more of them, always moving, always shambling. Sometimes, I'd see small groups, bumping into each other, a grotesque ballet of death. Other times, just one, a solitary, silent hunter. The worst was the silence. Not the absence of noise, but the absence of human sounds. No laughter, no conversations, no engines. Just the wind, the cries of birds, and the occasional, chilling moan of the infected. It made me feel so incredibly, terrifyingly alone. It's a different kind of fear, this isolation, when you know the only other living things are the ones that want to consume you. I made my way back towards civilization, a foolish hope clinging to me. Maybe there was a safe zone, military, something. The roads were littered with abandoned cars, a testament to the suddenness of it all. And bodies. So many bodies. Some looked like they died fighting, others, just lying there, like they'd simply given up. I didn't dare stop, didn't dare look too closely. The smell, it was overpowering, a thick, cloying stench of decay. I found a small, deserted diner. The door was ajar. Inside, a scene of utter carnage. Tables overturned, food splattered everywhere. And in the corner, a woman, still breathing, her leg mangled. She looked at me, her eyes wide with terror, and whispered, they got David." Before I could even react, before I could decide what to do, a guttural groan came from the back room. She screamed, a raw, ragged sound, and then she went quiet. I heard the tearing. I didn't look. I ran. That hunger, that relentless, unthinking hunger, it's all there is now. The air in the house was thick with the smell of decay and something metallic. I stumbled out the back door, the woman's last words echoing in my head. David. Gone. It didn't matter anymore. Nothing really mattered except that gnawing emptiness. I kept moving, away from the sounds, away from the horror. The familiar scent of the woods offered little comfort. It was just another place to be hungry. Days blurred into a relentless cycle. Scavenging for anything, a fallen fruit, a bird's nest, anything to stave off the sharp bite in my gut. I saw others, at a distance. They moved like shadows, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow. We avoided each other. Trust was a luxury none of us could afford. Every rustle in the undergrowth, every snapping twig, sent a jolt of primal fear through me. You never knew what was out there. The other kind, the ones who made those sounds, the ones who took people. One evening, huddled under a thick canopy, I heard voices. Not the groans. These were human voices, desperate, fearful. A small group, probably a few families, trying to find shelter, to find safety. I debated staying hidden, but a flicker of something, maybe memory of what it was like to be with people, to not be alone, pulled me closer. I watched them. They had a small fire going, meager rations shared amongst them. A young boy, no older than 7, coughed, a weak, rattling sound. His mother held him close, her face etched with worry. As I watched, a figure emerged from the trees, not one of the hungry kind, but one of them. A wanderer, like me. He was carrying a crude spear. He looked at the group, then at me, lurking in the shadows. His eyes, though weary, held a spark. He raised his spear, not in aggression, but a warning. They were too visible. Too vulnerable. I slipped back into the darkness. The next morning, I circled back. The camp was empty. Just scattered belongings, a discarded blanket, a child's wooden doll lying in the dirt. No sign of struggle, but no sign of them either. They had moved on, or worse. The thought of that boy, his mother, it was a familiar pang. A sadness that was quickly swallowed by the ever-present hunger. I continued on my own, the silence of the woods now feeling heavier. The world was a broken place, and the hunger was the only constant. I had to keep moving. Survival was the only thing left. Okay, so, picture this, Miguel, right? Just a regular dude, working a dead-end job in a stuffy office cubicle in downtown Chicago. One Tuesday, it's raining, the kind of dreary, soul-sucking rain that makes you want to stay in bed. He's on his way back from a rushed lunch, thinking about that overdue bill, when he sees it. A guy, out of nowhere, just lunges at another guy on the street. It's not a mugging, not a fight. It's primal. The attacker's eyes are wild, bloodshot, and there's this guttural, unearthly groan coming from him. Miguel freezes, his sandwich halfway to his mouth. Then, the victim, he starts to convulse, his limbs twisting at unnatural angles. His skin turns a sickly gray, and his jaw hangs slack, drooling. What's worse, other people start reacting. Some scream and run, scattering like rats. Others, though, they just stop. They stare, blankly, then slowly, deliberately, turn towards the commotion, their movements jerky, uncoordinated. It's chaos. Sirens wail, but they sound distant, almost drowned out by the growing chorus of shrieks and those horrifying, wet snarls. Miguel sees a woman, a businesswoman in a sharp suit, her face a mask of terror, being dragged down by a horde of these things. Their teeth tear at her clothes, at her flesh, and Miguel can hear the sickening crunch. He feels a wave of nausea wash over him, his carefully constructed world, bills, meetings, the lukewarm coffee, shattering into a million tiny, bloody pieces. His instinct screams at him to run, but his feet feel glued to the pavement. He watches, paralyzed, as one of the creatures, a former office drone he vaguely recognized, stumbles past him, its vacant eyes rolling, a piece of raw, dripping meat hanging from its mouth. It doesn't even register him. The sheer, unadulterated horror of it all, the visceral reality of people being torn apart, devoured, and then, becoming that, it sears itself into his brain. His mind is reeling, trying to process the impossible. These aren't people anymore. They are something else. A hunger, a primal need to consume, drives them. Miguel finally snaps out of his stupor, a cold dread gripping him. He needs to get out. He needs to disappear. His office, his apartment, his entire life, it means nothing now. It's just a stepping stone to whatever comes next, if anything comes next at all. He turns, not towards his office, but away from the unfolding nightmare, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He needs to find shelter, to find a weapon, to find anything other than this. The city, his home, is transforming into a charnel house before his very eyes, and he's just one man caught in the middle of it. He ran, not with any real direction, but away from the screaming, the tearing, the guttural sounds that were once human. The streets, usually teeming with people, were now littered with discarded belongings and something far worse. He ducked into an alley, the stench of garbage and something metallic filling his nostrils. He needed to think, but his mind was a chaotic mess of fear and disbelief. What was happening? How could this happen? He spotted a rusted pipe leaning against a dumpster. It wasn't much, but it was something. He grabbed it, the cold metal a stark contrast to his sweaty palm. He ventured out of the alley, peering down the street. A figure lurched around the corner, moving with an unnatural gait. It was one of them. Its skin was pale, its eyes vacant, and a dark, viscous liquid dripped from its mouth. He froze for a moment, the pipe feeling impossibly heavy. He didn't want to fight, but the thing was closing in. With a surge of adrenaline, he swung the pipe. The thud was sickening. The creature stumbled, but didn't fall. It kept coming. He swung again, and again, desperation fueling his actions. Finally, it went down. He stood there, breathing heavily, the pipe still raised, staring at the still form on the ground. He couldn't stay in the open. He needed to find others, to find a safe place. He remembered a community center a few blocks away. It was usually well guarded, and they had supplies. He began to move again, his senses on high alert. He saw more of them, always shambling, always hungry. He had to be careful, to avoid confrontation whenever possible. He saw a few people huddled in a doorway, their faces etched with terror. He hesitated. Were they safe? Could he trust them? He decided to approach, keeping the pipe ready. "Hey," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Are you okay?" One of them, a woman with a blood-stained shirt, looked up, her eyes wide with fear. "We're trying to get to the center," she said, her voice trembling. "But, they're everywhere." He nodded. "I'm going there too. Let's stick together." He felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could survive this. They started moving as a group, the woman pointing out a less crowded route, the man beside her holding the pipe, ready to defend them. They moved through the deserted streets, the silence punctuated by the distant cries and the unsettling shuffle of the infected. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the harrowing days. As you've seen, the fragility of our familiar world can be revealed in an instant. The stories we've shared, from the quiet desperation of the city center to the desperate flight through echoing streets, are stark reminders of how quickly normalcy can shatter. Remember the woman who guided them, her fear palpable but her will to survive paramount. Her resourcefulness in finding a path, and the man's steady presence with his makeshift weapon, exemplify the small acts of courage that can make all the difference. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, a clear head and a willingness to work together can illuminate a way forward. Our experiences have underscored a fundamental truth: preparedness is not about paranoia, but about resilience. Having a plan, even a basic one, for unexpected disruptions can significantly alter outcomes. Consider having a readily accessible bug-out bag with essentials like water, non-perishable food, a first aid kit, and a reliable multi-tool. Knowing basic navigation skills, even just how to read a map, could prove invaluable when all electronic systems fail. These aren't about expecting the worst, but about empowering yourself to adapt and overcome when challenges arise. The moments depicted were fraught with peril, yet the instinct to persevere, to find a sliver of hope, remained. The chilling sounds that echoed through the empty avenues, the unsettling rhythm of those who had lost themselves, these sensory details paint a grim picture. But amidst that, the human spirit's ability to adapt, to strategize even in the direst of circumstances, shines through. The collective decision to move together, to rely on each other's observations and strengths, was a critical turning point. It's a testament to the power of unity when faced with disarray. As we conclude, please reflect on the importance of staying calm. Panic is a swift enemy, often paralyzing action and clouding judgment when clear thought is most needed. Cultivate your ability to assess situations rationally, even when your heart pounds with fear. Take a deep breath. Observe your surroundings. Think before you act. This mental fortitude is as crucial a survival tool as any physical preparation. We hope these narratives have provided food for thought and perhaps a touch of preparedness for whatever life may bring. If you found this exploration valuable, please consider subscribing for more insights and discussions. We also encourage you to share your thoughts and any survival tips you may have in the comments below. Your contributions enrich our collective understanding and help build a more resilient community.